We're good. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this beautiful Friday afternoon. My name is Debbie. I am here from the Career Center. I'm joined by my colleague, Betsy, also from the Career Center. We are so excited to welcome Christine and Meg from LinkedIn. We're super appreciative of them taking the time to help us all optimize our LinkedIn profiles. We're not going to go into much detail about the Career Center, but we are here for all kinds of different things to help you out. You can make an appointment to meet with a career advisor like Betsy. We have a ton of different resources on our website. Next Thursday, we have our spring career fair. I'll drop a link in the chat so that you can register for that and meet with 35 different companies. And yeah, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Christine. Thank you again.
Excellent. Let me go ahead and just start sharing my screen, and then I'll go ahead and intro myself. So there we go. Give it a second to go into presenter mode. Everyone good? They can see presenter mode? Excellent. So thank you for having us. So my name is Christine Gramlich, and I am a customer success manager for LinkedIn Learning at LinkedIn. I'm super excited to be at DePaul. I have strong ties to DePaul. I'm actually a double demon. I won't say my years because I don't want to date myself, but I have strong affinity to the university. And in fact, I worked there for 18 years prior to coming to LinkedIn as well. So excited to be back. Hopefully next year this can be on campus. Hopefully this will be our last virtual year of this fun stuff. But anywho, so I'm joined by my colleague, Meg Heineman, who is the account director for LinkedIn Learning as well. Together we partner and we support DePaul in all things LinkedIn Learning. Today we're going to talk about how to rock your LinkedIn profile, or as we call it, a student's introduction to LinkedIn Learning. Couple housekeeping things real quick. We love questions, so if you feel comfortable, please take yourself off mute and shout them out. If not, if you want to drop them in chat, Meg is actually going to be monitoring the chat and we'll answer them, or if it's a big enough question, she'll send it out. She'll shout it out to me so that I can answer it as well. I always like to start with the LinkedIn mission. So our mission is to connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. So how does that trickle down to students? Well, our job is really to help you find your first job and then help you build your career and navigate through your career. And how do we do that? Well, I love this particular image because I think a lot of times when we're trying to do a plan, we think it's going to go like the top part. We're going to make a plan, we're going to get to the checkered flag, and it's going to be smooth sailing. If anything in these last 2.5 years has taught us, that is not exactly true. It's more like the universe's plan below for you. And I like to talk about this because it's really how you get through those dips and over those hills that really gets you to that end goal and makes you the right candidate for the job that you're looking for. And so today we're going to talk about how to leverage LinkedIn Learning at all parts of your journey, from the starting point, which is where we're all kind of at with rocking our profile, but how do we get out of those dips and how do we get over those hills to eventually get to that job that we're looking for? So there is a place to jumpstart your career, and obviously we're here to talk about LinkedIn, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about social networks compared to the professional network that LinkedIn is. So obviously we all know those other social networks are for our personal lives, and LinkedIn is for your professional life. The reason I call it out is because when we're talking about things on LinkedIn, we want to make sure we're putting time and effort and thought behind every post that we're making, because it is your professional brand that you're starting to build. Unlike other social media networks or other social networks where you're going to be talking about your social life, and those are meant to be quick, fun posts, LinkedIn, we want to be a little bit more thoughtful. And you can see here we have Aaron Bush, who has 2 different profiles, and you can instantly notice the difference between the one on the left, his social and personal life, and the one on the right, his professional life. And so I like to just break this down in terms of donuts. Chicago's got lots of good donuts, so why not talk about the sugary treats? When you're talking about donuts on social media, you're going to talk about things like, I like donuts. Here's a cool picture of the donut shop I went to. Does anyone have a recipe they can share for a donut? As opposed to when we're going to talk about donuts on LinkedIn. Again, same great sugary treats. However, you'll even notice the slight difference in the background I used for this slide. When we're talking about donuts on LinkedIn, we're talking about my top skills are in donut production and marketing and sales. I have 3 years of experience marketing donuts. I want to own a franchise. I'm looking for a job at a donut company. Again, same topic, but we approach it in a slightly different way. So I wanted to just shout that out so everyone has an understanding as we're jumping in. Now, as I said, if you have any questions, feel free to shout them out as we go along, but I'm just going to keep plotting through in the interest of time. So the power of LinkedIn. So why LinkedIn? So obviously you're here, you understand the benefits of LinkedIn, but let's dig into the numbers. There are 774 plus million members. We add members every minute of every day. I love making this slide because as soon as I make the slide doesn't accurately reflect our membership, which is why I started including the plus, because every time we talk about it, there's more members. There are 58 million plus companies listed on LinkedIn and that have information about their company on LinkedIn, and over 11 million jobs posted on LinkedIn at this very moment. There are also 120,000 schools represented and 30,000 educational related groups. Now, why is it important to have your school on LinkedIn? Because that's going to give you built-in affinity. I talked about how I'm a double demon. So obviously I'm an alumni for DePaul University. That draws me to help those at the university. Likewise, other alumni are drawn to help those who are graduating from their institutions that they've attended. So when you have your school on there and you connect with your school, it allows you to connect instantly with those alumni. Any questions before I jump into how to launch your career or your company using LinkedIn? Okay, so I'm going to divide this particular presentation into two sections. Building your brand, which is the rocking your profile, and how do you get hired, or perhaps you want to start a company or you want to have like a side hustle. How do you leverage LinkedIn for that? So let's start with building the brands. So your professional brand is extremely important, and it's one thing that's going to get you noticed by bosses, recruiters, investors, and customers. And this is what you're starting to put together when you're creating your profile, but also when you're posting or publishing on LinkedIn, which is why I called out earlier, we really want to be thoughtful when we're putting things up onto our profile. And why LinkedIn? Well, 9 out of 10 company recruiters use LinkedIn, so you need to be where the recruiters are. So you want to have the best profile. In addition to having the best profile, you want the profile that makes you the most unique and highlights why you are the most qualified candidate for every job that you're looking for. So how do we do that? So today I'm going to talk about the whys behind all of these. In order to do the hows, the clicking and where you go, I want you to make a note to watch the LinkedIn Learning course for students on LinkedIn Learning. I dropped the link into the chat and Debbie shared the link as well. If you haven't already activated your LinkedIn Learning account, please do so today because there's a lot of things I'm going to be talking about that you can then follow up for free on LinkedIn Learning because DePaul has access for all faculty, staff, and students. So we have 5 must-have profile sections. Now there are more than 5 if you go and look at your profile. These are the top 5 to get you started. And I'll throw in a few bonuses as well. Top 5: education, photo, professional experience, volunteer experience, and skills. And the why behind this. You want to make sure that you have a well built out profile because 75% of hiring managers check out profiles for candidates they're going to interview. These aren't recruiters. These aren't the human resource professionals that are sourcing the jobs. These are actually the managers that are making the decision on whether or not you are the right candidate. So you want to make sure that you've built out a profile that highlights your experience in a way that shows how past experience is going to make you the right candidate and the right choice for this new job. So let's jump into each one. Education. This is really the foundation of your career. You want to list your education because you're 10 times more likely to get a view than someone who hasn't listed their education or their school. Now, what you want to add is you want to put your school and your major and your degree. If your major or degree has a specialty, you want to put that in there as well. If you haven't yet graduated, you want to put an expected graduation date so that recruiters and those hiring managers know when you're available for a full-time job. You can also include here any sort of clubs or honors, like if you graduated with honors or the dean's list, something along that line, you would put that within your education. Again, once you put that education in, it's going to allow you to find those people who have alumni status that you will have when you graduate. Any questions on education? Okay, number 2, photo. And this is where we're talking about our profile photo. So there are 2 photos you can actually put in LinkedIn Learning, or into LinkedIn rather. The one is your profile pic. That's the one that appears in that tiny circle. The other is your banner pic. First, we're going to talk about the profile pic. You're 21 times more likely to get a view if you have a photo on your profile. Now, the reason you want to have a profile photo is because some people are good with names, some people are good with faces, but everyone is good when they have both. So for example, I'm really good at faces, not so great with names. But if I have an inkling of what your name is and I see the face and I could put that together, I'm going to be able to find that person that I want to connect. So what should your profile photo look like? Well, it should be you alone. It should be from your shoulders up. It should have a neutral background and it should have a natural smile. Think of your profile photo as a way to draw people in to want to learn more about you. So you want to look engaging. So on the left here, we have Alexander. He's smiling. He's in a professional attire. He's got a neutral background behind him. So his profile picture will pop and we're focusing on him and not distracted by anything else. You'll also notice his background is not white, but more of an off-white. I suggest taking your profile picture on a couple different backgrounds and see which one looks the best for you. If you go to my profile, you'll notice that my profile has some greenery behind me, because if I take a picture on a white wall, I look kind of washed out and it's not the best look for me. We also want to be smiling because we want to look like someone you would want to have a conversation with. We want to look like someone you would want to engage with so that you can go ahead and read further down into the profile and learn more about that candidate. Now, a question I get a lot is, do I need a professional photographer? If you have access to one, absolutely feel free to use it. Sometimes I know the Career Center used to have, professional photographers come in to take headshots, but you don't need one. And in fact, using your cell phone is going to provide just as good a result if you follow those couple rules. From the head up, smiling, neutral backgrounds, and dressing for what you are applying for. And what that means is, should you wear a suit? Well, if you're applying for a job where you know a suit is pretty much what everyone wears, say like a banker or a lawyer, then yes, you should dress like that so that you're looking professional, especially when you're first starting out. If not, you definitely want to go on the side of upper business casual. Again, we're only seeing from shoulders up. So again, this is kind of like the Zoom idea, party on top, sweatpants on the bottom, but we definitely want to be putting our best foot forward. Any questions before I talk about the background picture? One last thing I will say about the profile photo is make sure you update the profile photo as you update your look. So if you radically change your hair, say like you get a new hairstyle or a new hair color, you grow a mustache, shave a mustache, update your profile picture so that when the people meet you in person, you look like that profile picture and they're not like, is this the right person? You want to make sure that they're actually seeing the right person so that when they come in, they're okay, yep, this is the person whose profile I looked at. This is who I'm expecting to talk with. In terms of the background photo you can be a little bit more creative with, again, keeping in mind that this is a professional website. So this is where we're putting our professional foot forward, but you can be a little bit more creative and show perhaps what you're passionate about. So perhaps you love the Bears. Having a photo of Soldier Field up there, completely fine. Having a photo of you maybe drinking a beer in front of the Soldier Field, probably not the best foot forward for a professional site. Again, though, you could be more creative with that background photo to show what you're passionate about. If you're going into a particular field, maybe, say you're going into like the chemical engineering field, an image of, a chemical engineering plant or some equipment that might be used. That's all fine to put up there as long as you keep it within the professional vein. Any questions about photos before I jump ahead?
I do have a question.
Sure.
So currently, I used to work with Chicago Public Schools for 8 years as a school social worker. Now I'm working in a different industry, logistics and the supply chain. I do have a background picture of my students and myself taking a picture with the principal with with some medals that they won. Would that be appropriate? Because that is a passion, and I do still volunteer at the school I used to work at.
Absolutely, because that's showing what you're passionate about. And especially if you have that in the volunteer section, which we'll talk about as number 4, I think that absolutely makes sense. It shows that you're working in a particular industry, but you're also passionate about volunteering and working with children. I think that's totally fine to keep up there.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions? I know it's Friday. It's hard. It's noon. It's lunchtime. I'm feeling you. Experience. So here we're going to talk about professional experience. And this is really where you're going to spend the bulk of your time. And this is really where we do a little bit of research before we start talking about our experience. So let's jump into the why. 36 times more likely to get a profile view if you have 2 or more past jobs up there. And again, 36 times more likely to be found by a recruiter. So that's really the end game here is to get a job. So what can we list here? Being a college student, this is where we get creative. We list our internships, our summer jobs, our part-time jobs, jobs that we had in high school. But in addition to that, we want to describe what we did or accomplished in each of those jobs. And that can be a daunting task, especially if you're looking at positions. So what you want to do before you write your past experiences, you want to do a job search. Look for jobs that you're interested in and that you might be applying for. Read through 2 or 3 of those job descriptions. And then make a note. What are the key skills you're reading in every job description? If you read 3 or 4 of the same type of jobs, they're going to have similar skills. What are the keywords that they're talking about? Are they talking about project management, communication, people skills, marketing? Whatever those are, we want to make sure we're talking about our past experience in a way that shows how that past makes us perfect for this present. And we also want to be authentic. So we want to make sure that we're telling the truth. So if you truly just say worked at an ice cream shop and scooped ice cream every day, put that on there. But think about it as well. If you were scooping ice cream, you were probably interacting with customers and you had to make sure the customers were happy. Hey, that's customer service. Talk about customer service. And maybe you also scooped ice cream, but maybe you were also responsible for creating a marketing flyer for a new ice cream flavor that came out. That's graphic design. That's marketing. So you have to think about what you did in the past and think about all those transferable skills. So for example, 100 years ago when I was in high school, I worked at the Jewel in Chicago, and I was a bagger and a cashier. And so as a bagger, that's customer service. So you have to work with your customers to understand what they want in terms of getting their groceries in the bags. As a checker, not only is that customer service, it's financial management. I was responsible for my bank at the end of the day. That's technology. I was responsible for learning how to use the cash register, how to maintain the cash register. There's a lot that goes into every job that you've done. So if you take a little time and do research on what you're trying to accomplish and what you're applying for, you can easily write how that past has made you perfect for that present job that you're trying to apply for. Any questions about professional experience?
Yes, a few folks have joined in on the chat here with.
Love it.
Yeah, so here's the question. I'm looking for a user experience design job with no experience, and my previous work experience was not relevant to it. Do I still need to put my previous experience?
Absolutely put your previous experience, because it shows that you have worked and that you have been in different industries. In terms of not having experience, that's where you're going to leverage your coursework. So your coursework is going to provide you with those skills that's going to make you ready for your UX job. So what you want to do is, in your experience, talk about any projects that you might have completed as part of your degree. So typically there's like projects that are involved with each course. I don't know if you have to take a capstone perhaps, or maybe a junior project. Write about what you did for those, write about what you learned, and spin that so that you might not have past work experience. And let's face it, coming out of school, people understand you're not going to have past work experience in advanced fields like user design, but they want to see that what you've done in the past, and they want to see what you've learned in your career or learned in your degree that's going to make you ready for that. And then I would also suggest, if you feel like you don't have enough experience, depending on what year you are, perhaps talking to the Career Center and finding an internship, in UX design to help you bolster that past experience. Other questions, Meg?
Nope, we're good.
Okay, perfect.
I have a question.
Oh, yes,
Sorry.
absolutely.
So I've currently been with my company for 22 years.
Love it.
I'm a VP, but I don't know if that's relevant to put on there that I have an officer title, if you will, with the company, if that's relevant to my position at the company. Right.
Okay, so you have a VP title, but you don't think the VP title matches what you do with the company. Is that what you're saying?
Right. So I do business analysis, right? But
Mhm.
but I I have an official title. I'm a VP and a business analysis. I'm not a VP of an organization. We just get titles like that. So
I understand.
the recognition titles, right? But
I understand. I come from higher ed. I fully understand. I would still put the title on there because even if, I mean, you earned that title, right? It was a
Right.
recognition title. So I would put that on there, but I would be completely honest with what you do in your job. So if you're
Okay.
truly doing business analysis, talk about what you do. So you're vice president, and here's what I do as, a vice president business analysis. Here's what I'm responsible for. And then this is a great way to talk about accomplishments. And the big difference between your resume and your profile is on the resume, you're really limited. It's like action word, what you did, what you achieved, those kind of results. On your profile, you could be a lot more verbose, and you could talk in paragraph or bullet form. So really dig into what you've done to get that VP title.
Okay.
Dig into what you've accomplished, things that you've worked on, because obviously, yes, it's a recognition title.
Mhm.
But you had to get recognized to get that title. So what did you do to get recognized? So what past projects did you work on? What initiatives did you lead? Any business changes that you've, suggested that have, saved money or anything like that? I would definitely talk that up.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes for any of your past experiences as well. When you're changing industries or you're changing job lines, you go back and you rewrite your profile to talk about how your past experience has made you ready for that new job that you're looking for. So I think that's really important to know that your profile is a living document, and it can be changed, and it should be changed as you're moving through your career. Things that you might highlight to get your first job might not necessarily be as important as things you might highlight to, say, get your third job.
Christine, we have a few more questions that have come through. So one of them is with regard to incorporating a study abroad into the LinkedIn experience section. What are your thoughts on that?
I would definitely put that under professional experience, and just list what you did, and then what the experience that you had was and what you learned, because that's definitely part of your education, and it's definitely going to give you that kind of world view, which I know DePaul is big about making world citizens. So I would highlight it under your professional experience as, studied abroad. Where did you study? What did you do? And then I would also list that other institution under your education because you studied at that institution as well.
Great, thank you. And there's another question where it looks like it's resonating with a few people here. So the question is, I'm an adult student and I joined back after 10 years since I was raising kids. What should I do with my past experience? Additionally, I'm also an immigrant here, so all experiences I have are from India.
Okay, so past experiences, definitely put them on there, and put where the company is located, because all experience is important experience, and we are a global network. And then go back and rewrite your experience to be tailored toward what the job is you're looking for now. So look at the keywords, look at the skills, look at the main things that the jobs you're applying for are looking for. And odds are, if you were working for years in a past industry, you probably have a lot of those skills through transferable knowledge. So I would go ahead and go back and talk through it. Also, in addition, LinkedIn just added a field where you can actually put why you were on a break. So if you have a large break in your resume, either because you were taking care of children or perhaps taking care of an elder parent or a relative, you can actually put that in now as well to explain that gap.
Thank you. And there's another question that's come through. So what advice do you have for someone with little to no experience?
Okay. So I think we all have experience. So even if you just had a high school job, talk about what you did in your high school job, and then use college to get more experience. So whether that's project-based through your education, whether that's taking on internships, or even just taking on a part-time job if you can manage it during college, I think all of that would, boost your experience. But don't estimate the experience you're gaining simply by getting your degree. DePaul provides an amazing education, not only in the class, but there's a lot of external work done in the coursework. So talk about the projects, talk about things that you've done in class, and then highlight what you might have accomplished. So perhaps you were taking a course and you produced a website, or you produced a project or a project plan. Put that on your profile. You can actually link external documents and highlight how that makes you different. Maybe you created a digital media, or maybe you're in CDM and you created a short movie. Put a link to that in there as well to talk about what you've done. Understand that recruiters know coming out of college, you're not going to have everything. And the other thing I will talk about is on LinkedIn, you could take something called the skills assessment. And what that does is it's going to match you comparatively to other people looking at those positions and applying, and show where you are good and where you're bad. And by bad, I mean you're just lacking. You don't have the skills that you need. And then we can talk in a few minutes, like I think it's number 5 on my slides here. We'll talk about skills and how to gain skills that you think you need, but you don't have. And we're going to talk a lot about LinkedIn Learning and how to leverage LinkedIn Learning for that experience as well.
I have a question. So I'm graduating in a few months, looking at jobs right now, and
Sure.
a lot of them say they want usually at least like 0 to 3
Right.
experience in the working world. So do you recommend applying to those jobs anyway?
Yeah, if they're saying 0 to 3, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's a running joke in our industry. You want someone to come in and you want to pay them the base salary, but you want them to have 10 years of experience. That's not how it works. So yes, if they're saying 0 to 3 years experience, definitely apply, because a lot of times they'll look at your education as part of that experience as well. And that's where you're going to look at writing, what you've done in your coursework, any sort of projects or things like that to show what experience you have outside of professional, but through your education.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump into volunteer experience simply because it ties so closely with professional experience. Everything I just said for professional experience holds over for volunteer experience. And why is it important to have volunteer experience? Because 41% of hiring managers consider it as valuable as paid work experience. Why? Because if you're willing to give your time for free to do something that's probably not easy, they understand that you're learning as well. You're getting experience and you're becoming a better person through your volunteer. So you want to make sure you're highlighting it. So in this case over here, CEO, co-founder of a global impact collective. That doesn't tell me anything. We need to talk about what did they do at the volunteer experience. So the example I always give is when I was at DePaul, my department would volunteer once a month at St. Vincent and we would serve in the soup kitchen. So I could simply say worked at a soup kitchen. Doesn't really explain anything. But what I was responsible for, since I was the manager of my department, I was responsible for ensuring 7 people showed up. I was responsible for them being there on time. We were responsible for prep, service, cleanup, and preparation for the next day. So things I just talked about. I talked about management, people management. I was responsible for maintaining, and ensuring 7 people showed up. I was responsible for ensuring that we prepared, served, and cleaned up. Again, that's time management. That's just general management. We were preparing for the next day. That's time management to make sure that we have things ready for the next day. And we were serving at a soup kitchen. That's customer service. You were talking with the people, you were engaging, you were making sure they felt welcomed and that they had a great experience. All of which are valuable experiences, no matter what industry you're going in. You have to be able to work with people. You have to be able to talk with people. You have to be good at managing your time and others' time. All of that through volunteer. And that is another great way to boost up what you think might not be a lot of professional experience. Odds are you probably have some volunteer experience. Talk it up in that. And again, when you're looking at volunteer experience and you're writing it, you're doing the same thing that you did for professional. You're researching jobs, looking for the keywords, looking for the skills, and making sure you're authentically weaving it into your story. And then I'm going to jump to skills because I think there's going to be a lot of questions about skills. So skills are really going to raise your ranking with a recruiter. And to start, you want to have at least 5. If you have 5, you're 17 times more likely to get a profile view. 5 is the base. Upon graduation, should you max that out at 50? Probably not. But 20 to 25, probably not that hard if you think about it. Because if you look at the skills that we have, they range from customer service to Office to SQL to speaking another language. You want to highlight skills that you've learned both in school and outside through your experience. If you're not sure what skills, look at the skills that are being listed on those job descriptions. Those are the skills you want to match as closely as possible. Now, a question came up. What if I don't have a lot of experience? What if I don't have everything that particular job needs? That's when you leverage LinkedIn Learning. So for the student who just asked who's going to graduate in a couple months, you have a couple months, right? It's April, you're going to graduate mid-June. You've got 2 months now to beef up those skills. Leverage LinkedIn Learning. DePaul provides LinkedIn Learning for free to all faculty, staff, and students. If you're reading job descriptions and they're all talking about project management and you don't even know what that is, take a course on LinkedIn Learning. If they're all talking about Excel and you're really good at opening it, but couldn't do a pivot table to save your life, take a pivot table course on LinkedIn Learning. And then once you take those courses, you can actually post those certificates right to your LinkedIn profile. It's a great way to beef up the skills. It's a great way to beef up your certifications. And a lot of recruiters understand that the quality of the LinkedIn Learning courses is quite high. So it might even be able to help you pass through some of those initial screenings, those famous, computer tests that we all have to take sometimes, because they'll see that you have that certification from LinkedIn Learning, and they'll know that you actually have the skill that you're talking about. Any questions on skills or LinkedIn Learning or how to leverage the two together? I will do a quick shout out here. The activation link is in the chat right now. So if you do nothing else at the end of this, this presentation, activate your LinkedIn Learning course and find one course that you think you want to take, even if it's simply the LinkedIn for Students course, because that's a great course that's going to take you through and really talk through how to do your profile. Now, a couple of things I'm going to add here. So those are the top 5. That is not all. You should have an amazing headline. A headline is a hook to get them to read further into your profile. If the profile picture is going to get them to engage, the hook is going to get them to keep going down. You also want a summary. The summary is going to be a way for you to describe a little bit more about yourself, what you're passionate about, perhaps why you got into the career that you're looking to get into. You can also highlight if you're willing to relocate in that section, because that's an important thing for recruiters to know. You also want to make sure that you add your pronouns to your profile and that you add a recording of how to say your name. This is done through our mobile app. So once you create your profile on LinkedIn.com, you can download the LinkedIn mobile app. And from there, you can actually record how to say your name. Once you do, if you were to go to my profile, you'll see a little speaker with 3 lines next to it. If you click on it, you'll hear how to say my name. This is extremely important if you have a very difficult name to pronounce. Because it's going to put the recruiter at ease when they're talking to you, and vice versa. When you're doing your research, which we all do before we do our interviews, you're going to know how to pronounce the person you're meeting with name. Nothing worse than going into an interview and saying the name wrong. So you want to go and you want to make sure that you have your name recorded, and then you want to go and find those people you're meeting with to understand how to address them. Lastly, you can actually change the URL for your LinkedIn profile. When you create it, it's usually linkedin.com/in/your name plus a bunch of letters and numbers. It doesn't look professional. You can actually change that. And if we have time at the end, Meg, if you can remind me, I'll show them how to do that. You want to make sure that you change it just to your name. So it's /your name. So if you look at mine, it's /Christine Gramlich. If you have a common name, you can use your middle initial. You can use your full middle name. If that's super common, you can add 1 or 2 letters at the end. Again, you want to make it clean. So when people look at it, it looks like you took the time to make it clean. It's the difference between like sending in a resume on printer paper, if you have to actually hand in a paper copy, or sending it in on the nice, beige bonded paper. It's just that little extra step. It doesn't really change who you are or your experience, but it just increases that first impression that that person has of you. Any questions before I jump in how to get hired? Okay, how to get hired. That's what we're all here for. So we've built an amazing profile. Now we have to start looking for jobs or internships. I start this section with this list because I want you to understand, we get it, it's overwhelming. You have a lot to do. You have to get good grades, have fun, hopefully sleep a little, probably join some clubs. But then you also have to figure out a career, research a company, contact people who you can help, build a network, search for jobs, which ultimately leads to you changing the world. I use this slide because everything with a white check mark, including changing the world, because we're building those connections for you, can be done on LinkedIn. We can help you research careers and companies and network and search for jobs that ultimately will let you get to that job that's going to change the world. So what is important about LinkedIn and what can we provide? An understanding about competition, skills, and disruption. Competition, right now you're facing one of the most competitive workplace reorganizations possible. I don't know if you've heard of the term, the Great Reshuffle. So what that means is that during the pandemic, people in jobs have thought really long and hard about what they're doing and if that's what they want to do. There's a lot of people who are constantly thinking about that, but the pandemic has pushed them to actually move around, thus the great reshuffle. So you're not only competing with those people who are graduating with you, but you're competing with people who are changing industries because they simply didn't like where they were. Skills are constantly emerging, and companies expect you to have the newest skills as soon as they are required. Skills have about a 5-year shelf life. Think of it this way: skills that you're learning now in 5 years might not be relevant. Skills you need in 5 years might not even exist. Again, to date myself, when I was in school, this job didn't exist. LinkedIn as a company didn't exist. So you want to make sure that you're putting yourself on a path to help you ensure that you're getting the skills you need to progress through your job and through your career. And disruption. Understanding what is disrupting your current industry or your current field is going to allow you to have a better conversation during your interviews and show why you're the right person if you have an understanding about it. Typically, we talk about technology as a key disruptor. Last 2 years, COVID was the key disruptor. We completely changed how we did work in the blink of an eye. We went from everything in person to everything at home. We went from meetings and being on site to doing Zoom calls and learning and teaching and conducting business like that. That was a great disruptor. We all had to adjust. And it was tough because I work in the industry. That first 6 months, everyone was learning how to work from home, how to manage from home, how to teach from home, how to learn from home. And our biggest courses were things like how to use Zoom, how to use Teams, how to use video conferencing. Not surprising because we hadn't had to do that before. So understanding what the disruptors are, what the changes are going to be to the field, and what new skills you're going to need is really going to allow you to prepare yourself for futures and allow you to move into different careers and into different jobs because you've prepared. And how do we start? Well, all of this can be done on LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn just released our workplace report, which talks about skills that everybody needs. Every January, February, we release a top skills report, which are the top 5 skills that people are going to need, both soft and hard, for the coming year. Be on top of things. Keep learning. Kind of take that lifelong learning model that DePaul has instilled in you and realize that once you get your job, you're going to have to keep learning. But let's get you that job first. So where do we start? We start with the alumni tool. I talked about how important it is to list your education because that ties you to DePaul University and it ties you to their alumni. You can actually search for the alumni and you can see where they're living, where they're working, what they're doing. You can even dig in and find specific people in fields that you're looking to become part of. This is a great way to start building your network so that you can actually start to build your network to get into the job. Now, why is it important to have a network? Because getting a referral is still the best way to find a job. 85% of jobs are currently filled through employee referrals. And it's the #1 way top companies recruit. And why? Because companies spend a lot of time and money to build an amazing culture to become one of those hot top employers. Who better to know whether a candidate's going to fit than someone who's currently not only fitting in, but thriving? Someone who has found a company that's the best fit for them will help find others that are the best fit for the company. So you want to start building that network now. And we're going to talk about that. So where do we start? We start by connecting with the people you know. Family, friends, professors, perhaps career center people that you've worked with, community members, mentors, anyone you have a personal connection who knows who you are personally. You want to start connecting with them on LinkedIn. But please, please, please don't just send a blind connection, even to your parents, because you don't want to get in the habit of sending a blind connection, even if someone you know is going to accept. You want to practice because building connections is an art, especially when you got outside that comfort zone of the people who know you. So for example, here we have Megan. She's going to reach out to Professor Smith. Dear Professor Smith, I very much enjoyed your Econ 201 class last year. It's what inspired me to major in economics. May I add you to my network? It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. 3 things she put in there. Where does she know Professor Smith from? Threw in a compliment, which never hurts anybody. And she asked, and she clearly identified what the ask of this connection is. I simply want to be added to your network. That's going to make it much more likely for Professor Smith to accept that connection. I'm going to pause there to ask about connecting with people we know before we jump to connecting with people we don't know. Any questions? Okay, now it gets harder. Connecting with people you don't know. So this goes for alumni you might not know, or this might be a friend of a friend, or a friend of a parent, or a coworker of a parent. This is where we have to take a few minutes and really think and write a great connection. So on the left here, again, Megan is reaching out. She's reaching out to Scott, whom she does not know. Dear Scott, I found your profile through the Alumni Network. I'm a current student, would like to talk about your path to Amazon. Amazon is a top choice employer for next year. I'd love to get your perspective. Would you be willing to have a 20-minute phone conversation? I look forward to hearing from you. Again, short, sweet, and to the point. Megan identifies how she located Scott through the Alumni Network, why she's reaching out to him. I'm a student, you were a student, you work at Amazon, I want to work at Amazon. And she clearly outlined what the ask was, a 20-minute phone conversation. Things you want to think about when you're writing these connections, the why behind it. Are they in a company or a job that you're interested in? Can they connect you with someone who might be of help in finding that job? Do they have experience if you want to start a company or a side hustle? And what are you going to say? You're going to say who you are, how you found them, and how they can help. Again, short, sweet, and to the point, but a connection like this is going to be a lot easier for Scott to accept because Scott understands what the ask of him is, 20 minutes. Most people, especially through the Alumni Network, are going to be willing to give you 20 minutes. So be clear and concise when you're doing that connection. Any questions about connecting with people you don't know?
Yes, and I think you just touched on it, Christine, but is it beneficial to add connections you have from a field unrelated to your own?
Absolutely, because 2 reasons. 1, you never know who they know. And 2, you never know where they're going to end up. Just because you were in a past field together doesn't mean that if you're changing fields, maybe they have as well. So absolutely, you want to connect with those people you've worked with in the past and continue building and fostering those connections. Any other questions on connecting with people you don't know? Okay, here's where I offer a little bit of a carrot. This can be kind of tricky and kind of scary. And if you fail, you don't want to fail in a way that's going to perhaps hinder getting the job that you really, really want. So if you find my profile on LinkedIn, which is pretty simple, you have my name. If you write me a good connection, I will accept that connection and I will take a peek at your profile. Couple things here. 1, please have at least the top 5 things that I talked about today done and built out so I can look at it. Bonuses, if you've added your pronouns, how to record you've recorded your name and you've changed your link. Second, a good connection is going to tell me where we met. Now, typically I would see you in person. So I'd be standing in front of the room and I would see faces and I might not know names, but I'd recognize faces. Most of you are on off camera, which is completely fine because that's how I do a lot of these trainings as well. But if you want me to take a look at your profile, a good connection is going to be, hey, Christine, I attended your DePaul Rock Your Profile presentation on April 1st. I would like to hear one good thing that you liked about my presentation or one thing that you thought I could have added. And then remind me that I offered to accept your connection and take a look at your profile. That being said, it's not going to be instantaneous, my response, but it'll take a week or 2. But I will look at your profile and offer you some suggestions that is just specific for your profile. Any questions about that? I will say if you send me a bad connection, I will send it back, but we'll work on it together and we'll get you to a right connection, a good connection. Okay. Learning about job descriptions in companies. So LinkedIn is a treasure trove of information. I talked earlier about how many millions of companies we have on LinkedIn. It's not just a list of companies. They actually have to build out a company page and talk about what their mission is, what their values are, what they're working towards. In addition to that, in the job description, you're going to find out a lot about the company, what their goals are, what they're striving towards, along with what you need for the job. Most importantly, when you start searching through job descriptions, you're going to find possible connections. When you first start out, your network might be small, but as you go through your career and your network grows, you might not realize that your college roommate moved to the company that you're now interviewing with. So you could reach out and say, hey, remember me? We were college roommates. I'm looking to interview at this particular company. I'd love to talk to you for 10 minutes about the company and its culture and whether or not you think I'd be a good fit. In this case, we're looking at the company Freshing and we're learning about the culture and the job, but we're also finding that we have 8 connections at Freshing. We can message one of those or 2 of those connections, and that might become our referral, our internal referral for that job if they feel we would be a good fit. The worst thing is they could just ignore you. The best thing is they could become that referral. So leveraging what you can find on LinkedIn when you're searching for companies is going to be a great way to build that network and to get that foot into the door. One of the last things I'm going to talk about is job alerts. So on LinkedIn, you can actually set up a job alert. You can set it up based on job description, company, location, all the way, I think, down to zip code. And the reason you want to set up a job alert is because you want to be the first to hear about jobs that match what you're looking for. The reason is jobs that are posted from top companies instantly get hundreds and thousands of applications. For example, there's a job opening on my team. It was posted for, I believe, a day and a half, over 300 applicants. That means those first 300 have to be sourced through before we can look at any other ones. So you want to make sure you're setting up a job alert to know about the job as soon as it's posted, because it's going to email you and say, hey, a job matching your criteria has been posted. You can then decide then and there if you want to take the time instantly to apply. The reason you want to do this is you want to be one of the first ones to apply, because if a job gets thousands of applications, they're going to pull the job and source through those. And you might not have even known that job existed if you didn't have a job alert set up. The great thing about job alerts is you can constantly tweak them or change them. Set up a job alert today for something you might be interested in and see what it starts sending you. Is it what you thought it was going to be? Or maybe you need to refine it a little bit. But start setting up the job alerts so that you can see what's out there and whether or not you want to apply. Any questions on job alerts? Just want to check my time. Oh, we're good on time. One of the other things I want to talk about is leveraging LinkedIn to prepare for interviews and possible investor meetings. There's a lot of information on LinkedIn. We talked about what you can learn about the company, but there's a lot of other information that you can gather from our vast network. You want to follow companies you're interested in. So these are like dream companies you want to work for, or companies that are top in your field. You want to follow influencers. Every field has at least one or two influencers. These are the people like the Bill Gates, the Warren Buffetts, the Obamas of the world. If they're talking about it, most everybody else in that field is talking about it as well. You want to know what they're talking about. You want to be informed. And then you want to follow industries, not only companies, but industries, to understand what those kind of disruptors that we talked about earlier are in the field. What are they looking towards? What are they worried about? So that when you come in, you could talk to that. So for example, say you want to go into the automotive industry. We all know most car companies are trying to go, electric by a certain date. That's a disruptor. That's a big change. What can you bring to the table around that? Or maybe it's a different field and they're completely shifting how they produce something or what they've done in the past to something new. What can you bring? What skills do you bring that make you the right person to help them achieve those goals? If you can marry what they're trying to achieve to your skills and goals and tell a good narrative of how you can get them there, that's going to be a step ahead of most people who go in for an interview. And it's going to put you at the front of the line to get that particular job. Quickly, I'm going to talk about connecting your LinkedIn Learning profile to your LinkedIn account. This is done through the activation link, which I have here, but also in the chat. A couple benefits of connecting your LinkedIn Learning and your LinkedIn.com account. The first we talked about earlier. As you complete courses, you'll get certificates of completion, and you could post those certificates and the skills tied to each course right to your LinkedIn profile. That's probably the biggest benefit of the connection. The next biggest benefit is that it's going to start to personalize the content recommendations on LinkedIn Learning for you. Based on skills and a job title that you have in LinkedIn, it's going to start looking at what are others with those skills and that job title learning, and what should you be learning? And it's going to start to recommend that. It's going to start to tell you, hey, people with your skills are learning this, maybe you should as well. Or people in your job or the job that you're looking at are learning this, so maybe you should as well. So it's an easy way to connect the two, and it allows you to post those certificates, but also allows you to get better recommended content right away for you. That being said, I know I threw a lot of information at you right now, but I do want to close with your dream job is closer than you think. And lucky for you at DePaul, you have amazing support through the Career Center. So you can leverage them as well as LinkedIn Learning and this LinkedIn Rock Your Profile session. I did put together some ideas of things you could look at after this about LinkedIn, as well as recommended LinkedIn Learning courses. In terms of LinkedIn Learning courses, I have talked about the LinkedIn for Students. There's also a job hunting for college grad, a publishing for college students and young professionals, as well as informational interviewing. There's also an amazing course, or courses, I should say, on your elevator pitch, which is the idea of how do you introduce yourself in 5 minutes or less. In terms of LinkedIn, we have information around managing your public profile, setting up privacy settings if you wanted to create it in another language, if you were looking for a job in another country, as well as long-term, the idea of getting a LinkedIn Premium subscription. That being said, my last slide is my 5 more things. One more thing to do before you go. 5 minutes of self-reflection. Search for a job that you want to apply for, and quickly make notes of the top skills and the top keywords that they're using in that job description. That's going to help you write your professional experience. 5 minutes, practice introducing yourself. You could do it in front of a mirror. You could do it to a roommate, a professor, a parent, whomever you want to do. If you're not sure how to introduce yourself, watch the elevator course and then ask your friends, how would you introduce me in a professional way? And then the last 5 minutes, update at least one thing on your profile today. Even if it's just a picture, adding a headline, going in and adding a skill, just 5 minutes today. Spend 5 minutes looking at your profile. I'm going to stop sharing so I could see everyone. And I'm going to quickly jump in and show you how to change your URL link on LinkedIn. Meg, are there any questions while I jump into that?
There are, Christine. So
Love it.
yeah, the question was, and this came through a while ago, so I appreciate their patience, but how long should the summary be? And this individual has a short one that's about 5 sentences, but they've noticed some people have it very long, and it's pretty much explaining their whole kind of professional story there.
I like somewhere in the middle. I don't like the 10 paragraphs because I find that quite long, because that's what I'm going to read your experience for. But I lean towards the maybe 5 to 20 sentences kind of, realm for the summary, because it really is that. It's a summary. It's a summary of what you're passionate about, what your experience is, if you speak another language, if you're willing to relocate, those kind of key points that don't really have another spot on your profile. Because really, I don't need you to get into your experience because you have an experience section for that. And I should be able to read through your experience section and get that. Now, if you've made a job change, perhaps you might want to talk about why you've switched careers. Or if you have a long break, you might want to have a brief sentence about why you have a break and include that in your professional experience as well. But I know that I've looked at a couple profiles, and whenever I see like 4 or 5 paragraphs, I think it's kind of long. And I'm just like, that's a lot to read. Any other questions before I share my screen again?
Yeah, we have another question. It's how can I message people that's not in my connection? Is LinkedIn Premium the only way that they can do that? And that is correct. Other than when you ask to connect with someone, you can include a message there.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's it, right, Christine?
Yep. Yeah. Premium is going to give you those in-mails, which are going to allow you to reach out to other people. And so, for example, like I'm trying to see if there's someone on here that I don't have a connection with. Most of the people I follow, I have a connection with. Yeah, otherwise you'd have to get Premium to use those in-mails. So I wanted to show everyone how to change their URL. So if you click on your name on the left, it's going to pull up your profile. If you go to Edit Public Profile, click on that. Edit your custom URL. If you click on the pencil here, this is where you can actually edit what your URL looks like. You have 3 to 100 letters and numbers. You cannot use spaces, symbols, or special characters, but this is where you can really clean it up. So if you go and look at yours today and you haven't done this, odds are it's probably a version of your name plus a bunch of gobbledygook at the end, letters and numbers. You want to clean it up. You want to make it so that it looks clean. So if you were to put it on your resume so people could find it, I would suggest putting it in your signature on your email, especially as you're communicating with people to find a job. You want to have it clean. So you can put it in here and then you click save, and then it'll go ahead and save it. And then if you copy and paste this in, it'll take you right to that profile. Any other questions or anything else you'd like me to show you on my profile? So right here is where you can have your pronouns, and right here is where you can actually click and you'd hear me say my name. Any other questions or anything else you'd like me to highlight today? Debbie or Betsy, anything else you'd like me to talk about or any questions you might have?
Good question. I feel like that was very comprehensive and very helpful in bringing our students up to speed on LinkedIn. Thank you for sharing your time and your expertise and answering all of our questions. Yeah, Betsy, anything else to add or any other questions?
No, I don't think so. Christine, Meg, this was fantastic. Really, really insightful, and appreciate all of this wonderful information. And I think it'll be very actionable for our students.
Absolutely.
And Christina and Meg will be, they will share the presentation with us. So we will send the presentation and the video to everyone. As long as you have registered for this event in Handshake, we'll get that information to you probably early next week. And thank you for sharing those materials.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for joining today, especially on your lunch break on a Friday. Luckily, it was a little cold out, so I didn't have to fight with the quad. You know, that's a tough pull sometimes. But any other questions? If not, I'm happy to jump off and let you guys have 3 minutes back to your day. Oops, I think I saw one pop up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is from our colleague Danielle. Any suggestions on whether students should include participation in identity-based student organizations on their profile?
I would always say yes. You know, participation in any organization would go under, I would say, volunteer experience, because they're volunteering for that organization, and then highlighting what they're doing for that particular organization, I think is extremely important. Especially if they held any sort of like leadership role in that as well. Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for coming. I hope everyone learned at least something. And like I said, if you just do that 15 minutes of work after that, you'll be well on your way to starting to rock your profile.